Shadow Hack. Chapter 741, Recovery. Linuero was in the camp of vampires, constantly observing the distant Lucky Wind City. She was waiting for an opportunity to cut a bloody path to it. When she heard of the massacre in which countless ordinary people were killed, many others were left homeless and destitute, while many children were left orphans, she sobbed crazily. All of that was her fault. Everything happened because of me. All of them are dead because of me. City Lord, those people didn't even let the common people off. They are simply beasts. Linuero kept sobbing crazily, and her weeping influenced the soldiers in the camp. She kept blaming herself. If only she hadn't relaxed her vigilance, failing to pay enough attention to Lucky Wind City's defenses. The experts of the different planes wouldn't have been able to push through, which had resulted in the city's fall. With her staunch resolve for revenge, she cultivated the method Li Yunmu had given her like crazy. The soldiers who escaped together with her also did the same. They were waiting for an opportunity to take revenge while a life of debauchery continued every day in Lucky Wind City. The city was filled with lanterns that were red and wine green once it turned into a place of entertainment for the other plane experts. The lives of the common people were filled with suffering, since the experts from the other planes didn't view them as humans. They wouldn't shrink from committing any crimes like burning, killing, or looting the homes of commoners. They also confiscated any money they saw for their own use. Because of that, Lucky Wind City turned into a ghost town. Those who could flee had while leaving many dead behind. Compared to their comfortable life previously, they became extremely miserable. Linuero took care of Li Yunmu's parents while increasing her cultivation. She got stronger and stronger while researching various strategies and tactics in wait for the opportunity to cut a bloody path through Lucky Wind City. In any case, the occupants couldn't win over the population to their side. They spent their time drinking and enjoying themselves, which gave Linuero the perfect opportunity to take revenge. Even if those people possessed strength more formidable than hers, she was convinced that in time, the one who doesn't advance loses the ground. The people in the city weren't showing any intention to advance, just waiting for their ultimate downfall. After Cass learned the information about Li Yunmu, he immediately left for the origin world. Li Yunmu had killed his family, so he had to find and sacrifice him to make things right. Cass' departure left Lucky Wind City much weaker. On top of that, Linuero's side was growing stronger every day in the vampire camp while the experts from other planes kept growing weaker without Cass. There was a large disparity between the two sides. When Linuero decided to attack Lucky Wind City, Ling Shuang suddenly appeared in front of her. Ling Shuang, when did you return? I returned to assist you. I heard that Lucky Wind City encountered a great trouble. Linuero was silent, feeling extremely unwell. If it were not for negligence on her part, such a day would have never come to pass. I heard that there were many other plane experts in Lucky Wind City, which is just perfect. The sword in my hand has defeated countless experts from here, so it's time to challenge the experts from the other planes. Ling Shuang had changed a lot from before. After countless battles, she had become much more experienced, and her strength had also reached new heights, even stepping on the highest level of cultivation on Earth, Battle Sage. When compared to Li Yunmu, she was still quite a distance off, but on Earth, she could be considered an overlord-level character. Just like she had said before, when she returned again, she would certainly cause the situation on the Earth to change. In the afternoon, Linuero started her plan to recapture Lucky Wind City, which she had perfected for a long time. Her soldiers were ecstatic to see their brave city lord about to return to her former self. Moreover, with the return of the city lord, they passed their lowest point, finally returning to strength. Their power had also increased by a lot with the addition of Ling Shuang. Not only had her addition brought new blood to the forces, her coming had also bolstered Linuero's confidence in capturing all of Lucky Wind City at once. She didn't pay any attention to the small bandits in Lucky Wind City and simply made some discreet inquiries from which she learned that the leader of the enemy wasn't present. It was the best opportunity for her to attack. But she also had some apprehensions toward the experts of the other planes, since the weakest of them was a domain sage. She didn't have much assurance of winning in front of those people, but the appearance of Ling Shuang increased her chances. When Linuero finally arrived in the vicinity of Lucky Wind City, she gave the command to attack the city. Her action caught the enemy unprepared while indulging in debauchery. They hadn't even dreamt that Linuero would suddenly launch an attack on them. For 3 months, Linuero had been thinking of taking revenge while waiting for such an opportunity, for the moment when they could finally capture Lucky Wind City. Not only would they take revenge for the commoners, they would also take revenge for what happened 3 months ago. Blocking Linuero's path were the experts of the other planes. There were more than 100 experts, and the weakest of them was a domain sage. Cass had dared to leave not without reason. He wasn't afraid of Linuero forcing her way into the city because it was being protected by more than 100 experts of the other planes. Linuero possessed the strength of a domain sage, but it was impossible for her to deal with so many experts of the same level. But unfortunately for Cass, he hadn't considered the unexpected appearance of Ling Shuang. Upon entering the battlefield, she pulled out her sword without a word and rushed towards the experts of the other planes. "Come together, you all." The experts of other planes felt insulted by the words of the woman in front of them. There was no lack of domain sages among them, but as for battle sages, there was only Cass. Yet how could Ling Shuang possibly deal with such a grand arrangement of troops by herself? Linuero couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. "Ling Shuang, don't try to be brave. These people aren't easy to eliminate. You only need to concern yourself with recapturing your city, I will deal with other matters." Linuero nodded, then led her soldiers to charge into the city. Once Lucky Wind City was occupied, Li Tian and Li Da could lead Li Yunmu's parents back. Chapter 742, Getting Closer. In the Land of Ice, the 8 and Heavenly Gods Council were scheming to enter Asgard. In Shiva's eyes, capturing Scandinavia would be extremely easy with Athena acting as a mole. Right then, he was discussing with the other gods of the 8 about how to attack Heavenly Gods Council once Scandinavia fell. Zeus didn't know what Shiva was thinking, but he had been dissuaded from his plans by his daughter. Once he remembered that Shiva wanted to dip his fingers into the eastern domain, he immediately realized that he was extremely greedy. Once Scandinavia was wiped out, Shiva definitely wouldn't let things stop at that. Right then, Scandinavia dispatched numerous gods to meet the enemy in the battlefield, but in truth, the Scandinavian God Council had come to cooperate with the Heavenly Gods Council. Athena slowly followed after the forces. God Shiva knew that it was the perfect opportunity, but he didn't attack. He wanted to wait until Zeus couldn't bear it anymore and attacked. Then, when both Asgard and Olympus were busy fighting, Shiva would eliminate both sides in one fell swoop. The last time they had fought, the losses had been disastrous, so did Zeus really think that Shiva would sincerely cooperate with him? He was truly stupid if he did. But since Athena had come out with the enemy, the plan Zeus had mentioned had to have succeeded. Zeus sneered at Odin. "Today is the day you die. Daughter, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you attacking?" Once Zeus gave this command, Shiva rejoiced in his heart. Scandinavia should be finished. But before he could react, the numerous gods behind Athena quickly surrounded the forces of the 8 without letting a single person escape. When Zeus' Heavenly Gods Council cut off the 8's path of retreat too, Shiva was overwhelmed with shock. What exactly was happening? Zeus couldn't be thinking. Zeus coldly smiled, then said, "Do you take me for a fool?" God Shiva pointed at Zeus and said, "You unexpectedly dared to trick me? I will kill you. Don't move. Did you forget how our alliance with Scandinavian God Council defeated your 8 last time? Today history will repeat itself. I wonder, are you surprised or are you shocked, Shiva?" Shiva's intestines turned green with regret. How could he have forgotten that Zeus was a cunning and crafty person? At that moment, Shiva was forced into dire straits. When he was surrounded by the many gods, a hint of despair appeared in his heart. If thou didn't have the intention of harming people, would you still find yourself in dire straits? Odin asked calmly. Zeus smiled coldly. If it were not for my daughter promptly reminding me, I would have been completely in the dark. You wanted to reap the benefits while I and Scandinavian God Council were battling each other. Completely seen through? Shiva took a deep breath. He had thought that Zeus was someone who only cared about profit and couldn't see the big picture, and he had been right. However, he had never anticipated that Zeus's daughter Athena would really be worthy of her title of Goddess of Wisdom. Brunhilde, who was standing with her spear not far away, spoke to Zeus at that moment. What are you waiting for? Capture the 8. Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council's sudden alliance had caught the 8 completely unprepared. Without the reinforcement of the projection of Lord Brahma, they were also much weaker compared to the last time. Because of that, Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council didn't suffer disastrous losses when battling 8, unlike the previous time. Instead, it was the 8 who were completely surrounded and suffered disastrous losses. 2 of the ancient gods of the 8 were heavily injured. When Shiva fled with his people from the northern land of ice, he cut a sorry figure. Shiva, they had clearly calculated properly. Don't tell me we should forget it. Shiva smiled bitterly. If they didn't forget it, then what else could they do? The Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavia had already joined hands and it would take a long time to split them up. Moreover, any plans he had right then might not even work on the 2 of them. When Shiva returned to the southern field with great difficulty, he was still unwilling to give up, but the 8 had already 2 injured gods. Shiva felt sad in his heart, so he rested and reorganized in the southern field without willing to come out. The Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council had seized total victory, and Odin took the initiative to say to Zeus, I hope that after this campaign, thou would sincerely be willing to become the friend of our country. Zeus sighed and said while gently caressing Athena's hair, I still have to thank my daughter. If not for her reminding me, perhaps I would have been hoodwinked by small profits. If I encounter such a problem in the future again, I will definitely inquire my daughter's opinion and won't take any action alone. The matter with Shiva made Zeus' trust in Athena to deepen. Although there were still some differences between him and Odin, that wasn't important with Athena acting as a mediator. Athena had also obtained Odin and Brunhilde's confidence. In the future, she wouldn't be pushed aside in Scandinavia and would have her own position. Brunhilde smiled slightly towards Athena. Younger sister, I welcome you to continue staying in Scandinavia until Li Yunmi returns. But if you want to return to Olympus, that entirely depends upon you. Zeus looked at Athena and said, let's go, do you want to return? Li Yunmu is not in Scandinavia, and his strength has also greatly weakened. I've learned this from Kangyu sect. Kangyu sect? Who is that? Brunhilde and Athena were stunned. They had never heard of such an organization existing in the origin world. Zeus turned silent for a moment, then said, it is a newly established intelligence organization. Their informants are in the territory of almost every power. Previously there was an organization called Underworld Serpent, what happened to it? Could it be that Kangyu sect replaced it? Zeus shook his head. I don't have much understanding of those matters. The information of Li Yunmu's strength weakening has been spread by Kangyu sect. Right now, all of the Origin World's intelligence network is under their control. I heard that they were people from the 66 parallel planes. They came to the Origin World to avoid being exterminated and slowly formed their organization. Hearing Zeus' words, Odin, Brunhilde, and Athena were greatly enlightened. Daughter, then I will return. Olympus needs me, and if not for you, our Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council would have been finished this time. I know what I did was wrong, but next time Father won't make such a mistake and will definitely listen to you, Zeus swore. Athena shook her head though. Father, I am sorry, I cannot return with you. Chapter 742, getting closer. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. In the land of ice, the 8 and heavenly gods' council were scheming to enter Asgard. In Shiva's eyes, capturing Scandinavia would be extremely easy with Athena acting as a mole. Right then, he was discussing with the other gods of the 8 about how to attack heavenly gods' council once Scandinavia fell. Zeus didn't know what Shiva was thinking, but he had been dissuaded from his plans by his daughter. Once he remembered that Shiva wanted to dip his fingers into the eastern domain, he immediately realized that he was extremely greedy. Once Scandinavia was wiped out, Shiva definitely wouldn't let things stop at that. Right then, Scandinavia dispatched numerous gods to meet the enemy in the battlefield, but in truth, the Scandinavian God Council had come to cooperate with the Heavenly Gods Council. Athena slowly followed after the forces. God Shiva knew that it was the perfect opportunity, but he didn't attack. He wanted to wait until Zeus couldn't bear it anymore and attacked. Then, when both Asgard and Olympus were busy fighting, Shiva would eliminate both sides in one fell swoop. The last time they had fought, the losses had been disastrous, so did Zeus really think that Shiva would sincerely cooperate with him? He was truly stupid if he did. But since Athena had come out with the enemy, the plan Zeus had mentioned had to have succeeded. Zeus sneered at Odin. "Today is the day you die. Daughter, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you attacking?" Once Zeus gave this command, Shiva rejoiced in his heart. Scandinavia should be finished. But before he could react, the numerous gods behind Athena quickly surrounded the forces of the 8 without letting a single person escape. When Zeus' heavenly gods' council cut off the 8's path of retreat too, Shiva was overwhelmed with shock. What exactly was happening? Zeus couldn't be thinking. Zeus coldly smiled, then said, "Do you take me for a fool?" God Shiva pointed at Zeus and said, "You unexpectedly dared to trick me? I will kill you. Don't move. Did you forget how our alliance with Scandinavian God Council defeated your 8 last time? Today history will repeat itself. I wonder, are you surprised or are you shocked, Shiva?" Shiva's intestines turned green with regret. How could he have forgotten that Zeus was a cunning and crafty person? At that moment, Shiva was forced into dire straits. When he was surrounded by the many gods, a hint of despair appeared in his heart. If thou didn't have the intention of harming people, would you still find yourself in dire straits? Odin asked calmly. Zeus smiled coldly. If it were not for my daughter promptly reminding me, I would have been completely in the dark. You wanted to reap the benefits while I and Scandinavian God Council were battling each other. Completely seen through? Shiva took a deep breath. He had thought that Zeus was someone who only cared about profit and couldn't see the big picture, and he had been right. However, he had never anticipated that Zeus's daughter Athena would really be worthy of her title of Goddess of Wisdom. Brunhilde, who was standing with her spear not far away, spoke to Zeus at that moment. What are you waiting for? Capture the 8. Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council's sudden alliance had caught the 8 completely unprepared. Without the reinforcement of the projection of Lord Brahma, they were also much weaker compared to the last time. Because of that, Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council didn't suffer disastrous losses when battling 8, unlike the previous time. Instead, it was the 8 who were completely surrounded and suffered disastrous losses. 2 of the ancient gods of the 8 were heavily injured. When Shiva fled with his people from the northern land of ice, he cut a sorry figure. Shiva, they had clearly calculated properly. Don't tell me we should forget it. Shiva smiled bitterly. If they didn't forget it, then what else could they do? The Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavia had already joined hands and it would take a long time to split them up. Moreover, any plans he had right then might not even work on the 2 of them. When Shiva returned to the southern field with great difficulty, he was still unwilling to give up, but the 8 had already 2 injured gods. Shiva felt sad in his heart, so he rested and reorganized in the southern field without willing to come out. The Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council had seized total victory, and Odin took the initiative to say to Zeus, "I hope that after this campaign, thou would sincerely be willing to become the friend of our country." Zeus sighed and said while gently caressing Athena's hair, "I still have to thank my daughter. If not for her reminding me, perhaps I would have been hoodwinked by small profits. If I encounter such a problem in the future again, I will definitely inquire my daughter's opinion and won't take any action alone." The matter with Shiva made Zeus' trust in Athena to deepen. Although there were still some differences between him and Odin, that wasn't important with Athena acting as a mediator. Athena had also obtained Odin and Brunhilde's confidence. In the future, she wouldn't be pushed aside in Scandinavia and would have her own position. Brunhilde smiled slightly towards Athena. "Younger sister, I welcome you to continue staying in Scandinavia until Li Yunmei returns. But if you want to return to Olympus, that entirely depends upon you." Zeus looked at Athena and said, "Let's go, do you want to return?" Li Yunmei is not in Scandinavia, and his strength has also greatly weakened. I've learned this from Kangyu sect. Kangyu sect? Who is that? Brunhilde and Athena were stunned. They had never heard of such an organization existing in the origin world. Zeus turned silent for a moment, then said, "It is a newly established intelligence organization. Their informants are in the territory of almost every power. Previously there was an organization called Underworld Serpent, what happened to it? Could it be that Kangyu sect replaced it?" Zeus shook his head. "I don't have much understanding of those matters. The information of Li Yunmei's strength weakening has been spread by Kangyu sect. Right now, all of the origin world's intelligence network is under their control. I heard that they were people from the 66 parallel planes. They came to the origin world to avoid being exterminated and slowly formed their organization." Hearing Zeus' words, Odin, Brunhilde, and Athena were greatly enlightened. "Daughter, then I will return. Olympus needs me, and if not for you, our Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council would have been finished this time. I know what I did was wrong, but next time Father won't make such a mistake and will definitely listen to you," Zeus swore. Athena shook her head though. "Father, I am sorry, I cannot return with you." Chapter 743, Flowing Moon City. All of the devil world was drowned in darkness. Li Yunmei, who had just entered it, thought that it would be more magnificent than the primordial god world, but he only saw desolation and ruins. Among them, countless beings of the devil race were dithering about, making them seem even more desolate. Darkness filled the entire region, yet it was surprisingly that world's most formidable area. Li Ying smiled slightly and said, "Youngster, I observed the entire battle between you and those two ancient gods of the primordial god world, and I felt that you have boundless potential. If you can use it from my side, haha, our devil world will defeat the primordial god world." Now that the seal had been destroyed, we devils can wantonly charge through the devil god well and enter the ancient lands. Even if Fuxi and Nuwa are powerful, could they really stop our devil world's invasion of the ancient lands? Moreover, youngster, your aptitude is pretty good, you entered the devil path so quickly. You seem to have some ability and you surely detest those two ancient gods of primordial god world very much. Our hatred is even greater than yours, however. If not for them, why would we have been forced to live in the world that's covered in complete darkness? The stupid regulation that gods and devils cannot coexist has survived to this day. We devils have been surviving in this crack for eternity while the gods of the primordial god world have killed countless people from our side. I have endured my hatred for countless years, but finally I can vent it. Youngster, your potential is boundless, so it would be better if you followed me. I guarantee that your strength will quickly increase by leaps and bounds. But only as long as you follow me to destroy the entire primordial god world." When Li Yunmei heard Li Ying talk so much, he raised the corners of his lips. "Don't be all talk and no action. Since you said you can increase my strength, I want to see how can you assist me in increasing my strength. Without seeing the proof, on what basis should I trust you? Li Yunmu's words were focused on the issue of personal profit, and Li Ying became even more sure that the youngster had definitely fallen to the devil path. Only a devil would dare to focus upon the issue of personal profit when faced with the destruction of a world. Ha ha ha, okay, youngster, I appreciate you more and more. A hint of greed appeared in Li Ying's eyes, then he continued. Follow me. I will immediately let you know why we devils are considered more powerful than gods. If you truly pay your allegiance to me, I will appoint you as second in command. Li Yunmu didn't care the least bit about any position of power and just wanted more strength. It had to be great enough for him to become an unparalleled expert so that the gods would no longer look down on him as a mortal. Since he was unable to become a god, he would become a devil. Ever since he entered the devil world, the system had become dormant. It might have been because it wasn't a suitable place for it to operate. And while it was in the dormant state, Li Yunmu was unable to have ordinary communication with it. Li Ying led Li Yunmu to a desolate region, which allowed Li Yunmu to see more of the devil world's dilapidation in an enormous floating island shrouded in a layer of energy not far from them. The floating island had only one city and behind it was a very tall tree. It was completely black from top to bottom, while its roots hung below the floating island. What Li Yunmu found the most incredulous was that the tree was absolutely gigantic, and its luxuriant leaves were connected with the abyss in the sky of the devil world. When he lifted his head to look at the abyss, Li Yunmu instantly felt as if this abyss was quickly devouring him. He could faintly sense that the great tree was the source of all energy in the devil world. If the great tree was destroyed, then the entire devil world would instantly collapse, turning into complete ruins. Do you see it? Such a beautiful city, and it is the true devil world. What you saw before was only the surface. The true devil world lies in the city, which is extremely flourishing and thriving and where countless humans, gods, and devils linger, enjoying themselves. What is this place? Li Yunmu calmly asked. Flowing Moon City. It is the only city of our devil world. Perhaps you have seen many large and small cities in the divine and human worlds, but our devil world only has one city. It possesses the world's most formidable supplement. Do you see the large tree behind the city? It is the carrier of all the energy of our devil world. It is the world tree and the medium which absorbs the energy from the dark abyss that we need to survive. Without it, we devils would die out within a day. Li Yunmu smiled sinisterly. Don't you feel that it is very stupid to tell me such a secret? Now that I know it, won't it be easy for me to destroy the devil world? Ha ha ha, youngster, you are really good at joking. I could see that the hatred between you and primordial god world is very deep, so I know that you won't let us down. With your assistance, our devil world can open up new territories and make vassal states. Li Yunmu slightly smiled before continuing. Then should we enter the Flowing Moon City to take a look? Since we have already reached an oral agreement, don't you have the least bit of confidence in me? Li Yunmu's words startled Li Ying, and he burst out laughing. That is natural, then I will invite you to follow me. Li Yunmu followed Li Ying and turned into a ball of black energy that instantly entered Flowing Moon City. The layer of energy surrounding the island was unable to obstruct Li Ying from entering, and Li Yunmu couldn't help but ponder about it. This Li Ying doesn't seem easy to deal with. Since he was willing to share these things with me, it means he has the strength to settle the situation if something happens, otherwise, he wouldn't have taken such a huge risk. While thinking about his situation, Li Yunmu entered Flowing Moon City after Li Ying. From first glance, he could see that Flowing Moon City was as lively as Li Ying had said. It was just like a fictitious land of peace where the three races gods, devils, and humans lived harmoniously together. A little too harmoniously if someone asked Li Yunmu. Isn't this the life that you devils always been yearning for? Li Ying smiled coldly at him. It's just perfect, but the gods have always misunderstood our cause. They take us to be some crude beasts with the innate temperament just opposite of theirs, so they want to completely eliminate us. We might be a bit crude, but we aren't as bad as they believe us to be. Chapter 744, The World Tree. Li Yunmu was half skeptical and half accepting of Li Ying's words. After all, he was the master of the devil world. How could he not have any selfish motives? Also, how was it possible for devils to live together with gods and humans? It was only a humongous joke in Li Yunmu's eyes. Since it was a joke, then it was impossible for him not to conduct an investigation in Flowing Moon City. Even if he was a devil, he still hoped that he wouldn't become a bloodthirsty one who killed humans without any regard, like Li Ying. He was quite dissatisfied with the two ancient gods Fuxi and Nuwa, which was why he had fallen to the devil path. Li Yunmu carefully observed the city and suddenly discovered that everyone seemed to be walking around like zombies, as if someone had extracted their souls and turned them into puppets who only possessed a flesh body. With a frown, Li Yunmu tried to stop one person. His action went unnoticed, however. The passerby simply kept on walking forward. Even when he knocked against Li Yunmu, he still didn't stop or slow down. When Li Yunmu saw that, he sneered in his heart. The devils were the devils all right. Regardless of wherever they were, they would never become righteous. But the gods couldn't be believed either. They were selfish and ruthless, which made them completely untrustworthy. Only humans made of blood and flesh were affectionate and loyal and were suitable to become the true masters of the origin world. After thinking that through, Li Yunmu smiled at Li Ying. You truly sucked the soul out of these people? All of them are just walking corpses. Li Ying burst out laughing. They were seen through by you. But this isn't important. As long as they can continue acting harmoniously like this, I will never give up regardless of what price I have to pay. When Li Yunmu saw the bloodthirstiness contained in Li Ying's greedy gaze, Li Yunmu sneered. The devils were really thorough with their plan, but that didn't matter because soon everything in their world would be his. Weren't you saying that you will allow me to obtain strength? Only after obtaining more strength will I truly believe you. Whoever will give me strength, I will give my life to them. This is my standard. Ha ha ha, you are truly a model example of a devil. Alright, I will personally lead you to see the world tree. Just when Li Ying planned to lead Li Yunmu to the world tree, a woman suddenly dropped from the sky into Flowing Moon City. Gods or humans who mistakenly entered the devil world would first land in the floating island. Only those who knew the secrets of the devil world would truly know the real entrance. The descent of the woman from the sky caused Li Ying's complexion to change. He immediately commanded, "Arrest her." Gods, haha, she possesses a divine essence. She will become a good work of art in Flowing Moon City. When Li Yunmu glanced at the woman advancing toward them, he was left astonished. It was Yuan Biao. He had clearly locked up the foolish woman in an enchantment, so why did she suddenly appear in front of him? Li Yunmu, I am begging you to not follow him. He is the heinous Li Ying, the leader of devils who can even cause a headache for Fuxi and Nuwa. You mustn't believe his words, but return with me. I know you haven't truly fallen to the devil path. You're mostly clear-headed now, right? Li Ying howled loudly while gnashing his teeth. You garbage, why the hell are you standing there like that? Shut this woman's mouth. Kill her. Just when the devils intended to attack Yuan Biao, Li Yunmu went in front of her and grabbed her chin ruthlessly. He shifted his gaze, then said to Li Ying, I know this woman and I will deal with her myself. You shouldn't have any problem. Li Ying smiled slightly and said, do what you want, but she trespassed into the devil world, where she must face a dead end. You cannot show her any leniency. If you lack women, our devil world has many of them. Any type you want, you can choose as you wish. Li Yunmu coldly smiled at him. Do you think I would be interested in women? He then turned to Yuan Biao. Die girl, I told you that you were courting death, so don't blame me. Li Yunmu, what the hell are you doing? Have you truly fallen to the devil path? Without waiting for her to finish, Li Yunmu took action. Under everyone's gaze, Yuan Biao turned into golden particles, and the next moment, Li Yunmu absorbed them. He curled his lips, then coldly said, "No one should blame me from becoming powerful." Li Ying's gaze was full of shock when he saw Li Yunmu's ruthlessness. If the youth had truly become a devil, then he definitely would destroy the entire primordial god world. Li Yunmu's personality was truly dangerous. Not only did he threaten gods, even Li Ying, the leader of the devils, also profoundly felt his deep malice. He was like an overlord who didn't care about the feelings of others. Li Ying himself had some apprehensions when dealing with things, but Li Yunmu didn't seem to have any such misgivings. In his eyes, everyone who barred his path should die. It was courage and boldness, and Li Ying greatly admired it. He laughed heartily. "Youngster, you will really do something big, so let's go. I will take you to the world tree, and you will obtain the power you so crave. Then, I will entrust dealing with the primordial god world to you." Li Yunmu casually nodded and quickly went to the world tree under the lead of Li Ying. When they were there, he lifted his head and looked at the sky, where the world tree was connected to the dark abyss. It seemed like it was looking straight back at him. Although Li Yunmu had fallen to the devil path, there was still a hint of consciousness in his mind. That consciousness was being swallowed by his heart, and he was surprisingly unable to control his body in front of the world tree. "Do you feel it? The world tree is very happy to see you and is constantly transmitting power to you. Do you feel it?" Li Ying greedily laughed at Li Yunmu. He seemed to be very satisfied by the world tree taking fancy to Li Yunmu. Li Yunmu felt a warm sensation all over his body, and strength poured into his body like river water flowing into the sea. He was drowned in energy. His eyes gradually turned pitch black, and his black pupils filled with demonic intent, making him seem extremely terrifying. Yet while he was absorbing the power of the world tree, the ancient secret method flickered in his chest, and his complexion changed instantly. Chapter 745, Decision. When Zeus heard Athena's reply, he was dumbstruck. His daughter unexpectedly refused his request. Zeus had never thought that something like that could happen. Even if Athena was ruthless, she should still care about the feelings of her parents. She was the wife of a garbage, yet she was still disobeying the intentions of her parents. A person like Zeus was completely unable to accept it. "I am sorry, but this is your daughter's choice. I hope you will respect your daughter's choice." Athena lowered her head. Although she regretted hurting Zeus, she wanted to make her position clear. She still liked Li Yunmu, regardless of whether he was a garbage or a super expert. She remembered how when Scandinavian God Council and Heavenly Gods Council were at war, Li Yunmu had warmed her heart like a warm current. Moreover, she was also quite envious of the deep emotion between Brunhilde and Li Yunmu, which was very rare and precious. She felt that only Li Yunmu could produce such a sensation in her heart, so she chose to follow Brunhilde and wait silently for Li Yunmu's return. Even if he was busy, they would continue to wait for him. When a man occupied a woman's heart, they would wish to protect the land where the man felt the best. In Brunhilde and Athena's eyes, Scandinavia was the land of ultimate happiness for Li Yunmu. At least until he returned, they had to keep it in intact condition so that he wouldn't have to worry about his back and could continue pushing forward with his matters. Zeus shuddered from head to toe because of Athena's refusal. She was his daughter, but was going against his desires, not giving him any face in front of so many gods. But Athena was an intelligent person, so she promptly said, "Father, when Li Yunmu returns, I will pay a visit to Olympus with him. I cannot return right now because I want to wait until my husband returns. I won't go." Athena's words alleviated some of the tension in Zeus' face, and he gloomily said, "All right, then after Li Yunmu returns, you must pay a visit to me." Those words were mainly for the other people to hear. Zeus got close to Athena's ear and impatiently whispered, "The Li Yunmu right now is completely different from before. If you continue staying in Scandinavia, you will become their hostage. Is that what you want? You know that our Heavenly Gods Council and Scandinavian God Council have been enemies for a long time. If you continue to stay here, then how can your father not worry? Zeus whispered words startled Athena, but she still said, Father, you don't need to worry. I have my own thoughts, and you should quickly return to Olympus with Mother and henceforth give up on the idea of continuing your attack on Scandinavia. I will definitely never agree to it. Athena's words upset Zeus greatly. He suddenly regretted making the stupid decision to marry Athena to Li Yunmu. But she was smart and knew right from wrong. He could only leave with the many gods around him, or it would be quite embarrassing for him. After all, Athena could already be considered half Scandinavian. After Zeus left, Brunhilde hugged Athena tightly and said, Younger sister, I welcome you to continue staying in Scandinavia. Didn't we agree that we will wait for our husband? Certainly something has come up since he hasn't returned for such a long time. We can only stay here and wait silently. Athena's decision to remain in Scandinavia earned her the respect of all gods. Odin also thanked her. Thanks for persuading thou's father. You may live at ease in Scandinavia. If Olympus encounters any trouble in the future, our Scandinavia will help them with full strength. Many thanks Odin. I will pass these words to my father. I wish to stay here for Li Yunmu. I don't care about the rumors spreading outside, he will always be a powerful expert in my heart. Brunhilde also joined her. That's right, I also don't believe that my husband would become a garbage like what Zeus said. In any case, we will wait for him to return. Until that day dawns, we will continue spreading Scandinavia's glory everywhere. Athena and Brunhilde smiled at each other while on the side Thor also bowed his head to Athena and apologized. I am sorry, Athena. Previously, I didn't have any trust in you, so I apologize. After today, I and my sister will have complete confidence in you. Athena nodded, but didn't say anything more to him. She looked at the stars and couldn't help but mumble, Li Yunmu, when exactly will you return? The sound of close-quarter fighting filled the whole of Lucky Wind City, and corpses could be seen everywhere. The minor powers from Earth who had hatred for the city were completely annihilated by the powerful squad led by Linuero. As for the remaining experts, they were in battle with Ling Xuang. She could be considered as an extremely dangerous person, and she fought against the 100+ experts without any fear and defeating them skillfully one after another. Linuero was dumbstruck after seeing that. Her side's war was finished, and she had the time to see that the fight on Ling Xuang's side was a complete one-man show. She hadn't expected that Ling Xuang's sword technique would have already closed in on perfection, and she gasped in amazement. The experts living in Lucky Wind City were completely wiped out by her. When Linuero saw the city in shambles, she quickly sent people to clean it up. Even if Lucky Wind City had turned into ruins, it was like a home for her. Ever since Heavenly Cloud City was destroyed and she was saved by Li Yunmu, she had settled in Lucky Wind City. All of that still felt like a dream to her. She had stayed in Lucky Wind City for a very long time, and her feelings for it had grown. It could already be considered as her home. Ling Xuang's sword cut through space. Wherever she went, a corpse would fall from the sky. Even if she faced a formidable expert, they would shudder in front of her sword. After the time needed to drink a cup of tea, Ling Xuang had defeated more than 100 experts. Linuero in the meantime cleaned up the city, and the previous calm was restored to Lucky Wind City. However, it was a ghost town right then. Countless commoners had died and fled from the city. Only when Linuero would usher peace for the common people would the city be restored to its original appearance. Chapter 746, Vengeance. Lucky Wind City was restored to its former flourishing state because of Linuero. Ling Xuang had returned to and defeated the experts of the other planes. The supreme transcending experts who had cut a bloody path through Lucky Wind City with Linuero were extremely excited. The battle hadn't been easy, but because of Ling Xuang's return, they were able to obtain victory after a long time. After quenching their thirst for vengeance, they opened the main gate of Lucky Wind City. When Linuero and Ling Shuang again sat in front of each other, Ling Shuang's strength far surpassed that of Linuero. Why did you return? Linuero was pleasantly surprised. After all, Ling Shuang's contribution was very important in recapturing Lucky Wind City. She had defeated many experts of the other planes, which was a feat that no average cultivator could accomplish. Ling Shuang sheathed her sword and said, "When I was traveling, I heard about a talented city lord of Lucky Wind City and thought that it should be you. Afterwards, I encountered an expert and had to fight with him, without any time to come and find you. From him, I learned about the situation and rushed to Lucky Wind City to assist you. I hadn't expected that by the time I returned, you would have already been defeated. The Lucky Wind City had already been captured by others. I didn't want to disappoint Li Yunmu, so I had to help recapture Lucky Wind City. Once when I heard that you were in the vampire camp, I went to find you there." After listening to Ling Shuang's words, Linuero wiped tears from her eyes. If it was not because of Ling Shuang, she truly would have been embarrassed in front of Li Yunmu. Given her strength, it was impossible for her to recapture Lucky Wind City. Even if Cass leaving had created a major opportunity for them. With Cass present, they would have been in trouble even with Ling Shuang. She would have been busy restraining him, so the experts from other planes would have been free to strike Linuero's army. Linuero sighed that her luck was good and that they didn't encounter Cass. "How could you have been beaten so utterly? Li Yunmu had confidence in you. He gave Lucky Wind City to you and you allowed it to fall like that. How will you give an explanation to Li Yunmu?" Linuero sighed. "Li Yunmu devoured the other planes, so our Earth is the only one left. The experts from the other planes then came here to avenge the disappearance of their homes. I encountered a very powerful expert. His strength was almost the same as yours, and he was also better than me at strategies. I feel that he is the most powerful expert among the experts of the other planes." When Ling Shuang heard about the most powerful expert from Linuero, she curled her lips and said, "Most powerful? Then I would like to get some pointers from him." "Ling Shuang, you still haven't changed. As soon as you encounter an expert, you want to challenge him." Ling Shuang snorted. "I live for battle, otherwise, this sword in my hand wouldn't be satisfied." Linuero smiled at her. "If you help me manage Lucky Wind City, I'm sure it would become much safer. I don't understand anything about managing a city, so do that by yourself. I will be responsible for removing obstructions in your path." Linuero nodded. As long as Ling Shuang was around, Lucky Wind City wouldn't face any danger. After that, peace returned to the lives of the supreme transcending experts who followed Linuero as well the commoners. Cass had already went to the origin world and was searching for Li Yunmu's whereabouts. He wanted to kill him personally to avenge his clansmen. But the origin world was different from the Earth. Powerful experts filled all its corners, and he was nothing more than a drop of water in the ocean. He only had a shallow understanding of the origin world and didn't have a particular direction. The only thing he knew was that Li Yunmu was there and that was why he had come running without knowing where in the world he would find his target. When Cass was feeling extremely bewildered, a man wearing dark green gown appeared before him. "You came from Earth, right? You're an expert whose plane has disappeared." Cass suspiciously looked at the mysterious person wearing a green gown and said while creasing his brows, "What does it matter where I come from?" The stranger removed his hat and indifferently smiled. "I welcome you to the origin world, Cass." Cass was dumbstruck. Wasn't he the target Cass had always wanted to surpass, H.A.C.K? "I know that you came to the origin world to get vengeance, but I have to remind you that Li Yunmu isn't so easy to deal with. You have to be extremely careful," H.A.C.K calmly said. Cass sneered at him. "When he killed everyone in my family, I decided that I have to kill him. I definitely won't give up. Regardless of how formidable he is, either I will kill him or he will kill me. We cannot live under the same sky." H.A.C.K shook his head. You are truly reckless. Youngster, do you know what's the most important thing in this world? It's not power or money, or even women, it is life. Without life, you will disappear from this world for all time. Strength, money, and women, you won't be able to enjoy any of them. H.A.C.K words caused K's complexion to change slightly, and he suddenly said, then what exactly should I do? That Li Yunmyo killed my family. The grudge between us is irreconcilable. The reason why we came to the origin world is because we could already see this. After coming here, we formed an organization. It is known as H.A.C.K and is specialized in collecting intelligence in the origin world. Many powers with ancient gods have become our frequent customers. What you should do is join us, for only after you do so will we assist you in getting vengeance. Otherwise, you will be a trash in the origin world. I fear that before you can even find Li Yunmyo, you will be killed by a random half-step god. Half-step god. Cass took a deep breath. It was a realm which he thought was unattainable for him. If you were willing to hear me out, I would take you to see the sect master of H.A.C.K. If you aren't willing, do as you please. The origin world isn't a place where you can do as you please, so I hope you can fend for yourself. Cass carefully thought about it. He had crossed a long distance to come there, and wasn't it all just for vengeance? Since someone could help him get it, he should take their help. Chapter 747, Formidable Strength. The reason why Li Yunmyo became so nervous from the light flickering in his chest was because he hadn't killed Yuan Biao just a moment ago. He had only concealed her as the ancient secret method, but he hadn't expected that she surprisingly wouldn't understand his intention and intended to come out. If Li Ying discovered it, let alone speak of allowing Li Yunmyo to continue absorbing power, he might even kill him and Yuan Biao together in the devil world. The strength of the devils couldn't be doubted, not to mention that they had the protection of the world tree, so he and Yuan Biao would be unable to escape. Li Ying couldn't help but curiously inquire about the golden light over Li Yunmyo's chest. Something's flickering in your chest? Is it a treasure? Li Yunmyo coldly smiled and said, have you heard about the ancient secret method? Perhaps it had automatically reacted after sensing my strength. I stole it from Fuxi and Nuwa in the primordial god world. Ha ha ha. Li Ying suddenly burst out laughing, then couldn't help but say admiringly, I appreciate your boldness. How does obtaining the power of the world tree feels? Just when Li Yunmyo thought of saying something, the golden light in his chest finally disappeared and Yuan Biao appeared from the ancient secret method. Li Ying slightly creased his brows. He had personally witnessed Li Yunmyo kill that woman just a moment ago, so how did she suddenly appear out of nowhere? Li Yunmyo's complexion changed, and he began to pay attention to the flow of power. If Li Ying made things difficult for them, he was ready to fight him, but if Li Ying didn't question him, he would continue to absorb the power of the world tree acting as if nothing had happened. Yuan Biao coughed, then she began to curse Li Yunmyo. You scoundrel! Li Ying narrowed his eyes and suddenly coldly smiled at Li Yunmyo. This woman, didn't you already kill her? How could she still be alive? Can you give me a reasonable explanation? Li Yunmyo felt depressed in his heart. Yuan Biao was only creating him trouble everywhere. He pretended to feign ignorance and couldn't help but say with creased brows, what? Something happened? What did you see? Li Ying was flabbergasted, and he suspiciously asked, you can't see her. Who are you talking about? Li Ying heaved a sigh of relief. It was the woman whom you killed just a moment ago. She appeared out of the golden light which was emitting out of your chest. Li Yunmyo snorted at his words. I have already killed her, but she is still bothering me. Seems like she is even unwilling to die. But you can surprisingly see her? Seems like your strength is very high. Even after Li Ying received Li Yunmyo's praise, he was still somewhat unconvinced. Hopefully, he was just overthinking it and the woman had really died and appeared as a phantom in front of him. Then I will completely disperse her in your place. Yuan Biao didn't know why Li Yunmia was talking like that to Li Ying, but she could see that he was trying to protect her by doing that. After thinking about it, she began to act according to his story so as to avoid exposing his lie. But she never expected that the hoodlum dressed in black clothes was surprisingly so ruthless that he wanted to scatter her ashes, completely erasing her from existence. She could only look at Li Yunmia with a helpless gaze, and he promptly stopped Li Ying. Don't completely exterminate her, or the ancient secret method I stole will become unusable. Li Ying began to laugh heartily at his words. That's good. As long as it can assist you in increasing your strength, I will do as you want. But you must agree to destroy the primordial god world. Li Yunmia withdrew Yuan Biao into the ancient secret method. He didn't want the foolish woman to become his weak point. When he advanced a few steps forward, however, he discovered a woman in the world tree. Who is this? How could she be trapped in the world tree? Li Ying looked at the woman, then a hint of panic flitted through his eyes before he coldly smiled. She is my former woman, and right now I am forcing her to live using the power of the world tree. Everything is because of the primordial god world, she became like this because of them. I hate those gods, and the reason I turned into a devil is because I wanted to fight against them until the end, until I could completely drive them out of the ancient lands. Li Yunmia was deeply moved by Li Ying's story. After turning into the devil, he had absorbed the power of the world tree, and his strength had increased by a lot. I will agree to destroy the primordial god world, but you need to do me a favor. Li Yunmia stated before looking at Li Ying somewhat greedily. Although you helped me increase my strength, I still want to obtain your strength. It would be better if you helped me and allowed me to absorb your power as well. Then I will help you destroy the primordial god world. Li Ying's complexion changed when he heard Li Yunmia's ambitions. He suddenly felt that bringing Li Yunmia to the devil world had probably been a bad idea. Greed was his inherent nature, so it would have been better to destroy the insatiable mortal. Are you thinking of playing a trick on me? Humph, if that's the case, then you don't need to leave the devil world. After absorbing the power of the world tree, you even intend to kill me. What are you even planning? Idiot, I followed you to the devil world only to obtain power. I don't care about matters which aren't related to me obtaining strength, and you are the only person who can increase my strength. You. Li Ying's body shuddered at that moment, and he transformed into a black shadow, ready to battle Li Yunmia to the death. Li Yunmia looked at flowing moon city covered in darkness, then coldly sneered at Li Ying. Everything is according to my taste here, did you know that? Li Ying. I must thank you properly. Li Ying's complexion changed abruptly. What exactly was the origin of that guy? In the beginning, he thought that Li Yunmia was determined to enter the devil path because he hated primordial god world, but it showed up that he had some other aim. Li Ying couldn't help being astonished. You. Li Ying, who had already turned into a black shadow, was confused. Li Yunmia didn't use the great devouring technique. After using the dark state, his presence was already similar to that of Li Ying. I must thank you properly for raising my strength to this level, ha 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 ha. I will absorb you now, but there won't be any pain. Don't worry. Chapter 748, Sleeping Beauty. After entering the devil path, Li Yunmia had obtained the strength of the world tree. The power circulating inside his body quickly began to overflow out of it. Li Yunmia's eyes turned black, but he still preserved a hint of clear-headedness while in the dark state which was related to him turning into a devil. Previously, Li Yunmia had never been conscious in the dark state because of the collision of light and dark attribute power, which caused him to lose his consciousness. But things were different right then. He had turned into a devil, so only dark attribute power remained in his body. After entering the dark state, his dark attribute power was continuously increasing without any rejection, forming a complete fusion. Li Yunmia was the true master of the devil world at that moment. He was like a monarch looking down from the heaven, even subduing Li Ying, who was by his side. Fiend origin. Li Yunmu had already turned into a devil, so he didn't care about the side effects of the fiend origin. The dark attribute power congealed to form an enormous dark whirlpool. Each and every demonic being and dark attribute power was thoroughly absorbed by it. Li Ying looked at Li Yunmu's movement in mid-air, flabbergasted to the point of speechlessness. What exactly did he intend to do? Not only the dark essence of the dark abyss, but even the darkness shrouding flowing moon city was absorbed. Li Ying also lost control of his body, and he advanced toward the whirlpool step by step. No, you reckless guy, you lied to me. Li Yunmu sneered at him. You wanted me to be your subordinate, what the hell were you thinking? The entire devil world is mine. I am the master of the devil world. But you can be relieved, I will definitely destroy the primordial god world and fulfill your heart's desire. Ah! Ah 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 ah! Li Ying's miserable shriek echoed when the fiend origin absorbed him. A series of miserable wails echoed throughout the origin world when countless devils entered the fiend origin's dark attribute whirlpool and gradually turned into the fountainhead for Li Yunmu's strength. Li Yunmu was even more ambitious, however. He wanted to absorb the entire world tree so that he would possess boundless and inexhaustible source of power. When Li Yunmu intended to devour the world tree, Yuan Biao appeared suddenly and stopped him. Don't! You cannot destroy the world tree, or all of the ancient lands would be destroyed. Why do you say that? Li Yunmu coldly looked at Yuan Biao. She took a deep breath and said, because this world tree is related to the divine tree of the primordial god world. The two trees complement each other and allow people to increase their strength. The divine tree represents hope, while the world tree represents despair. The two types of power have been linked for many years, creating the difference between gods and devils. If you destroy the world tree, the divine tree will also disappear with it. At that time, the entire world will be swarmed by the two types of powers. The gods and devils will be stripped of their power, which would result in the heaven falling and earth rending. The whole world will be destroyed. Li Yunmu narrowed his eyes. He wanted to know whether Yuan Biao's words were true or false, but the system was sleeping, and even if it hadn't entered the dormant state, Li Yunmu would still be unable to communicate with it after he turned into a devil. That made him unable to ascertain whether Yuan Biao's words were true or not. But it was better to be safe than sorry. If the world was truly destroyed, everything he had done previously would be a waste. Moreover, his loved ones were still in Asgard, so he couldn't be impulsive. Li Yunmu pulled back after thinking about it. Then he looked at the flowing moon city, which was not far away from the. It was a beautiful city, but unfortunately it was filled with dead people. Li Yunmu's dark attribute power instantly shrouded the flowing moon city, following which the city was again filled with vitality after being illuminated by his dark power. The dead people in the city obtained another life and surprisingly regained consciousness. Being enveloped by the dark attribute power, they could continue to remain alive without any pressure. When Yuan Biao looked at the beautiful flowing moon city, she couldn't help but sigh. The devils of the devil world were absorbed by you. Li Yunmu displayed his fiend origin and coldly said, yes. Don't tell me you also want to be absorbed by me. Li Yunmu, have you recovered your consciousness? I beg you, I truly don't want you to remain in your present state. I want the original Li Yunmu to return. Yuan Biao said while trembling. She had given voice to her inner desire. The reason why she had come to the devil world was to persuade Li Yunmu to return. Li Yunmu coldly sneered at her. I am the master of the devil world, I am the heavens. Why would I want to return to my original state? I have obtained so much power that I can even capture the ancient lands. Don't tell me that you truly intend to destroy the primordial god world? That is my former homeland, and even if Fuxi and Nuwa acted that way in front of you, you still cannot destroy the primordial god world. That would be an unreasonable action. You mustn't make another mistake, alright? Li Yunmu. Yuan Biao tried to patiently dissuade him. However, Li Yunmu in his dark state had already forgotten about Yuan Baiao's situation and coldly said, "Too troublesome. It's none of your business whatever I do." Those words stabbed Yuan Baiao's heart, and it crumbled into pieces. But she could clearly sense that Li Yunmu still cared about her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have pretended to kill her to save her in front of Li Ying. "You clearly know who I am. You knowingly assisted me, so why can't you return to your original state?" Yuan Baiao sobbed crazily. She was truly afraid that Li Yunmu would destroy the primordial god world on an impulse, then how would she give an explanation to Fuxi and Nuwa? Li Yunmu slowly proceeded toward the world tree. The woman inside was still lying expressionlessly with her eyes closed as if her consciousness was gone. Li Yunmu sighed. A true beauty. The woman in the world tree wore white clothes and had fair skin as well as a delicate face without any flaws. Li Yunmu congealed the dark attribute power in his hand and poured it into her body. Chapter 749, Sisters. The whole world tree suddenly swayed because of Li Yunmu's actions just a moment ago, and he shifted the woman out of the tree. It swayed twice then recovered its original appearance. The woman was originally deathly pale, but after Li Yunmu poured his dark attribute power into her body, her complexion gradually turned ruddy. The corner of Li Yunmu's mouth curled up into a slight smile, and he indifferently said, "Li Ying, I rescued you, so you should thank me." When Yuan Baiao saw that Li Yunmu seemed to be very interested in the woman dressed in white clothes, she felt very jealous in her heart. "Why do you want to rescue her? Don't tell me that I have to report my every action to you." Li Yunmu retorted coldly. Li Yunmu's icy words startled Yuan Baiao. She was his wife, so how could he say that to her? She was very unwilling, but soon, the woman dressed in white in front of her awkwardly opened her eyes. When she glanced at Li Yunmu, she found him extremely familiar and quickly embraced him. "Li Ying, is it you? It truly is you. I sensed your power, you have rescued me." Tears began to fall from her eyes. She was like a sleeping beauty who had woken up after thousands of years and mistakenly identified Li Yunmu as the person with whom she had been in love before. When Yuan Baiao saw it, her eyes instantly went wide. She glared at the two people in fury, then swiftly pushed away the woman dressed in white. The sleeping beauty suspiciously looked at Yuan Baiao and asked, "Who are you? You need to let go of his hand, you vixen. Don't try to seduce to my lord. He is my man." Yuan Baiao had sworn to defend their marriage and was determined to push away the woman in front of her eyes. The woman dressed in white creased her brows. You already married? Have you forgotten our promise? Li Ying. When Li Yunmu heard the woman's word, he felt slightly awkward and said, "I am sorry, miss. I am not Li Ying." The woman in white was slightly startled and said while shaking her head, "Impossible, you have Li Ying's presence." "I am not wrong, you are Li Ying." The woman in white began to panic slightly. She was terrified by the idea that her man didn't intend to recognize the feelings they had held for 1,000 years and promptly embraced Li Yunmu's arm. "Don't tell me that you forgot that you have been trying to wake me up for the past 1,000 years. You paid such a heavy price for that and even entered the devil path. I won't forget this kindness, so now that I have awakened, I will be your wife. I will repay your kindness." The woman dressed in white threw herself at Li Yunmu, leaving him bewildered. After turning into the devil, he no longer had the basic human emotions. When Yuan Baiao saw that the woman in white wasn't willing to leave Li Yunmu, she couldn't help but begin to yell. "Get lost! Leave his hand or I won't be polite towards you." Yuan Baiao wasn't the least bit tolerant of the woman in white clinging to Li Yunmu, while Li Yunmu himself stood cold-faced. He turned a blind eye to the two women fighting over him. Compared to before, Li Yunmu was very different, which Yuan Baiao couldn't accept. The woman in white looked at Yuan Baiao with great hostility before deciding to fight it out with her. Yuan Biao was pretty good since she had been cultivating in the primordial god world for 1,000 years under the personal guidance of Fuxi and Nuwa. Her strength thus couldn't be looked down upon. However, the woman in white was extremely mysterious. After Li Yunmu poured his strength into her body, her strength began to circulate through her body. Dark attribute power congealed around her palm, and she launched a vicious punch. Yuan Biao wasn't willing to fall behind, and white energy congealed in her hand. The two of them were like sisters, for even the techniques and martial skills they used were very similar. When the two palms collided, the entire devil world shuddered. The floating island, which was already on the verge of collapse, was unable to endure their strength. The two women looked at each other, and sparks flew around them. "You vixen, why are you using the same techniques as me? Despicable!" Yuan Biao shouted out in fury. The woman in white coldly snorted at her. "It's you who is copying me. What exactly is your relation with Li Ying? Why did you call him your master? You surprisingly don't have any sense of shame or honor nor any self-respect. What a joke, do you even know what self-respect is? As soon as you saw a man, you threw yourself in his arms. What are your intentions? Today I will teach you a good lesson." The figures of the two women were constantly flickering, which could dazzle anyone's eyes. Li Yunmu, however, wasn't paying any attention to the fight. Instead, he walked closer to the world tree where he saw a book. He picked it up and began to smile in a strange manner. It showed up that the sleeping beauty was surprisingly the same as Yuan Biao. She was a book. Li Yunmu flipped through the book, which was the same as the ancient secret method and had no words written in its pages. It roused Li Yunmu's suspicions. Was the woman in white truly the same as Yuan Biao? Could it be that the ancient secret method was once split into two, and both of them gained consciousness, which were like sisters? "The two of you don't need to fight. You both are the ancient secret method," Li Yunmu suddenly shouted out. Yuan Biao stopped mid-action and asked with incredulity, "What are you saying? We both are the ancient secret method? I don't believe." The woman in white coldly snorted. "I am the same as her? I don't believe it. Then you both should tell, what are you?" I am the life essence of the primordial god world's ancient secret method." The woman in white's complexion also turned shy, and she hemmed and hawed before saying, I am the life essence congealed from the ancient secret method of the devil world. "You vixen, stop copying me!" Yuan Biao shouted out furiously. "Who is copying you? I am speaking facts." Li Yunmu didn't care about the battle between the two women and indifferently asked, "You haven't seen Li Ying, so how can you love him?" The woman in white raised her chin when she looked at him. "In order to transform his constitution, I poured all of my power into his body. After that, in order to rescue me, he placed me into the world tree to recuperate. For 1,000 years, I heard him talking to me all the time, which made me very happy." Li Yunmu nodded, then said to Yuan Biao, "She is truly your sister." While Yuan Biao was speechless, the woman in white said, My name is Linuero." Chapter 750, Withdrawing from the Devil Path. Yuan Biao suddenly frowned and asked, "What did you say just now? You said that you changed Li Ying's constitution. What did you mean by that?" "I helped him enter the devil path and turned him into the master of the devil world." "Then can you help him turn back from a devil?" Yuan Biao asked instantly. Linuero nodded. "I can try." Li Yunmu narrowed his eyes. He couldn't help but size up Linuero once more. The power in her body was completely linked to the devil world, so wasn't the reason why Li Ying had put her inside the world tree was so that others wouldn't discover her secret? If all the people of the devil world were turned back from being devils, wouldn't Li Ying become the lone devil within the devil world? Wouldn't he be very lonely at that time? But regardless of which supreme expert it was, wouldn't they all become unrivaled in the end? When they reached the peak, they could look down on others and no one would be able to stand by their side anymore. They would even start to thirst for a worthy rival. Li Yunmyu couldn't help but think of the system's words. Perhaps once he reached the peak, he might also experience those emotions? Two waves of dark energy appeared in Ling Yuan's hand, which constantly revolved around Li Yunmyu while she kept chanting some incantation which appeared similar to the original ancient secret method. At that moment, there were two ancient secret methods in Li Yunmyu's hand. One of them was from the primordial god world while the other from the devil world, so the two women could be considered twins. Ling Yuan looked somewhat vicious while Yuan Biao was like a clean and spotless jade. Li Yunmyu slowly closed his eyes, allowing the two waves of dark energy to enter and circulate in his body. They seemed to be destroying and eliminating the impure energy in his body. Help me, I haven't accumulated strength for a long time, so my power has been exhausted. Ling Yuan's words startled Yuan Biao, who forgot about her jealousy and immediately began to help her. After all, she was the only hope for Li Yunmyu to recover his reason. She didn't want to see Li Yunmyu falling further onto the devil path and transforming into a ruthless devil like Li Ying, who murdered anyone without blinking. She hoped that Li Yunmyu could return to his original state, when he was an extremely warm and kind youth. It was the real Li Yunmyu and not the one right then who would do anything to obtain power. When Yuan Biao poured her power into Ling Yuan's body, she was startled, but she soon used the power flowing into her body in a steady stream to continue eliminating the devil energy in Li Yunmyu's body bit by bit. Yuan Biao could see the black smoke coming out from Li Yunmyu's body. It was most likely representing that Li Yunmyu was turning back into a human, which caused her eyes to shine and joy fill her body. Li Yunmyu, are you all right? Li Yunmyu stayed with his eyes closed and his brow knitted. He didn't reply. It hasn't been dispersed completely. You mustn't relax or all the previous efforts will be wasted, Ling Yuan said gloomily. After hearing Ling Yuan's words, Yuan Biao sent even more power into her body. She decided to go for broke to make sure that Li Yunmyu recovered his original state. On the contrary, Li Yunmyu was feeling rather peaceful with the two incarnations of the ancient secret methods by his side while they kept glittering in his chest as if trying to outshine each other. After an hour, both Ling Yuan and Yuan Biao were forced to retreat because of the smoke of impure energy coming out of Li Yunmyu's body. The two women toppled to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood, while the black energy in Li Yunmyu's surroundings kept revolving around him. Ling Yuan smiled bitterly. I have done my best. Now whether the corrosion of demonic presence is thoroughly removed or not completely depends upon him. Yuan Biao nervously looked at Li Yunmyu and emotionally said, Li Yunmyu, you cannot continue stubbornly push on with the wrong path, quickly return to your original appearance. I beg you. I really don't want you to stay on the devil path. You are my man. Yuan Biao's words seemed to have given hope to Li Yunmyu. He fiercely opened his eyes, and the black energy surrounding him was completely dispersed by the burst of a golden light from his body. Yuan Biao's eyes filled with pleasant surprise. She could see the pure and clear expression in Li Yunmyu's eyes, which was unlike before, when his pupils were pitch black. He has recovered. He has recovered. Yuan Biao began to jump excitedly, but Ling Yuan, who was by her side, looked at Li Yunmyu and asked with some doubt, what did you call him just now? Li Yunmyu. He isn't Li Ying. Ling Yuan's eyes were full of despair, and she spoke to herself, unwilling to accept it. No, this is impossible, I can sense that he is Li Ying. Yuan Biao curled her lips and said, Li Ying is already. When Li Yunmyu saw that Yuan Biao was about to tell Li Ying's true whereabouts to Ling Yuan, he promptly cut her off. Li Ying has already recovered his reason and presently enjoys being called Li Yunmyu. Li Yunmyu's word allowed Ling Yuan to breathe a sigh of relief, and she jumped into his embrace. It doesn't matter that you've changed your name. I will still accompany you for eternity. In the past 1,000 years, you protected me, but I won't let you get lonely anymore. Now that you have woken up again, I won't let you leave easily. You. Yuan Biao ruthlessly looked at Li Yunmyu and Ling Yuan. However, I have already married your sister whom I found when I was in the primordial god world, he said indifferently. Now, you two sisters should acknowledge each other, right? Ling Yuan was slightly startled and looked at the gloomy and depressed Yuan Biao before saying, "You said, she is my sister." Li Yunmu took out the two ancient secret methods before continuing to speak. These are two identical methods, and you both can see it, right? This is your original appearance, before you cultivated for 1,000 years and condensed your spirits. Ling Yuan nodded and suddenly turned to Yuan Biao to greet her. Elder sister. Younger sister was blind just a moment ago and couldn't recognize you. But younger sister really loves Li Ying and have been discourteous towards you. Li Yunmu once more interrupted Yuan Biao. She has a little bit of a temper, but I am already used to it. Yuan, since you woke up, I won't forget our previous agreement. We will get wed in the devil world, then leave this place. I am no longer the same Li Ying, so staying here isn't necessary anymore.